Hey y'all, welcome to another pregame live chat with The Advocate. My name is Jeff Nowak. I am The Advocate and NOAA.com's digital sports producer. And we're here to talk about some LSU football. We're about to kick off in about an hour. This live chat is sponsored by Creed and Creed. Thank you so much to our sponsor for helping us bring this to you every week. I always have a hard time straightening my hat when I'm doing this because it's reversed. So I always try to send it to the right and then I go like this. So anyway, that's why I'm doing that. But that's not what we're here to talk about, even though I'm sure people can relate. Excuse me. We are here to talk about LSU football and the fact that they are playing another game without their starting quarterback, Miles Brennan. TJ Finley will be filling in for the second consecutive game. And we're just going to go through a few key points. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and we'll get to them on the second half after a word from our sponsors in a little bit. But, you know, this is a big game, and I hope you're ready, and I hope you have the popcorn or whatever your beverage of choice is, maybe something to unwind, because I think this is going to be much more of a struggle than you saw last week. South Carolina just didn't look up to play in that game, and the LSU defense kind of brought it after kind of a rough start. And it's really, I think last week showed just how talented this LSU team is when they put more than one phase of the game together. When that defense is playing complementary football, they don't even have to be great. They just have to be steady and not give up immediate scores after every positive play by the offense, just to turn it back on the offense's head and say, okay, let's see if we can win on the offensive side of the ball because we're not winning on the defensive side of the ball. Last week, that's not what happened. The defense forced turnovers. They scored. They held up on third down. They didn't have, they had a few just kind of mind-numbing secondary breakdowns, but not anywhere near what you saw against Mississippi State or Missouri in those two losses that really kind of put a damper on what, otherwise has been a above average start considering what you probably would have expected from a team with that much turnover on offense. Miles Brennan played exceptionally well in the first three games, considering those are the first three starts of his college career, and two of them were losses because the defense allowed 40-plus points. TJ Finley played excellent last week. There's a lot of talk about whether there was a quarterback controversy. Dan Orlovsky kept harping on it on the broadcast. Ed Orgeron shut that down pretty quick after the game. I think that he is ready to go back to Miles Brennan whenever he is healthy, and I don't think that, I think TJ Finley playing well is great. A true freshman playing well is great for this program. And the fact that you have a guy that you now trust, a big back that you now trust, big quarterback that you now trust, or, when Miles Brennan is struggling, you have an option there. When you get down to the goal line, first and goal from the one in the final moments of that game, if you had that to do over again, now that you trust TJ Finley, would you not throw TJ Finley in on maybe first down, second down? I think you would. And I think you'd probably score because that's just the situation you want with a guy like TJ Finley in there. He's going to play again today. I'm curious to see how he holds up in another week, with the defense being able to game plan for him. That's always a factor when you go to your backup quarterback. The team you're going against has, they've been scouting Miles Brennan. They only have tape on Miles Brennan. Now, all of a sudden, they have to try to defend a quarterback they've never seen. They don't have any tape on. And that's not going to be the case this week. Auburn had a week to kind of look at what LSU did with TJ Finley and what he likes to do. They can kind of scout that RPO look that the LSU started the game with. And it'll be interesting to see if Auburn handles it a little better. You got to remember, this Auburn team is good, but they also lost to that same South Carolina team that LSU rolled over last week. So I think that if LSU's defense can hold up, and TJ Finley can avoid turnovers, I think that's the biggest thing for him. I think they win today. If y'all have any score predictions for the game, throw them in the comments. I'd love to go through them. I'm curious what y'all think, the confidence level y'all have, because this is a really important SEC showdown. This is really a game that LSU needs to win to keep their SEC West hopes alive. They're not out of it yet at 3-2, as crazy as that sounds, because they always have that Alabama kicker. They have that game at home against Alabama, and if they win that, which, it's a long shot, they're going to be an underdog. But if they win that, then all you're doing is sitting there and saying, if Alabama loses one more game, LSU has it. So, as bad as a, 3-2 start, 2-2 start, I think they're 2-2 right now. They are 2-2. I don't know why I said 3-2. I'm getting them mixed up with the Saints. As bad as a 1-2 and then 2-2 start sounds, it's far from over. These are all SEC games. Alabama has just as much ability to throw a dud down and lose a game you don't expect as LSU does. So let's get a quick word from our sponsors. Again, throw a comment in the chat, throw your questions. I'm curious to see what y'all think, score predictions and such. And we'll see you on the other side of the break.
This is not a dramatization or a paid testimonial. I'm Christian Creed, and let me tell you, car wrecks can wreck lives. As a former insurance adjuster and as a licensed accident investigator, I've handled hundreds of accident claims. If you or a loved one have been involved in a car accident, no matter how big or small, let me put my experience to work for you. Call Creed and Creed. We're serious attorneys for serious injuries.
Okay, we are back. Let's keep going through some of these pictures from last week. We have some great photographers out there, and there's a picture that we can talk about. Everyone's going to want to talk about TJ Finley going into this game. The broadcast is going to shower TJ Finley with hype going into this game, and he's the only guy they're going to talk about. But I would argue that, as good as TJ Finley was, he got something against South Carolina that Myles Brennan did not have the benefit of. And you can argue that TJ Finley had a big role in the running game success because of what the threat that he possesses with his legs, and the fact that he did use that, and the Gamecocks had to account for it. But he got a running game last week that the Tigers have not shown for the first 4 weeks. And they ran for 48 yards against Missouri. They came out and ran for more than 200 yards against South Carolina. John Emery's, especially looked good. He kind of gave away to Ty Davis-Price in the second half, who also looked good. Chris Curry was kind of the odd man out, but he's another guy that could get going any week. And, that's the part of LSU's offense that has really been missing, because that's the part of LSU's offense that allows them to control the ball. They lost the time of possession battle in their first 3 games. They beat Vanderbilt. They still didn't possess the ball as much as Vanderbilt did. And there are obviously different reasons for that, but they won the time of possession battle against South Carolina by about 15 minutes. And that's a huge part of keeping if you have a suspect defense, you want them on the field as little as possible, and you want them to be rested when they are on the field. If you have a defense that is struggling to communicate and to run their defensive sets effectively, and they're making all these mistakes, those mistakes get more and more cumbersome as you get tired, as you're kind of burnt out and you're not communicating as quickly or effectively. And then all of a sudden you have these complete blowups in the secondary where, some guy named Micah Johnson is running down the middle of the field by himself. So if you possess the ball, you lessen the burden that you put on the defense. And that's what they were able to do against South Carolina. And that's what you really want to see again out of guys like John, whoever it is. I think that kind of going with that, most college systems try to go with a bell cow, and because they don't have don't always have the luxury of a guy like Darius Geis, Leonard Fournette, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, whereas this LSU offense is structured perfectly for a committee running back system, and that's what they did against South Carolina. Both guys had touchdowns. Both guys had over 70 yards. Both guys had long runs. Both guys had just rolled up first down after first down, and I think that's as big of a factor as winning today as whatever TJ Finley does. So let's keep an eye on him. The other guy that's always worth talking about is Mr. All I Do Is Score 2 touchdowns a game, Terrace Marshall. he scored 2 or more touchdowns in every game this season. He has 9 already. That's just bananas. I mean, that's just not normal. And he didn't really play much in the second half against South Carolina because they were so far ahead, and he could have had more. So it'll be interesting. He had a really good rapport with Myles Brennan. He had those 2 nice catches with TJ Finley, and but otherwise I didn't see as much reliance on him as I did with Brennan early in the season. He's not pushing it downfield quite as often. And, the running game is part of that. So it'll be interesting. If the game's a little closer, it'll be interesting to watch how comfortable TJ Finley feels going to Terrace Marshall. Obviously, it helps when he's wide open, like he was on the little rub route on that first touchdown. And then he had the nice long touchdown later in the game. So that's going to be something to watch. And then, obviously the defense, it's always a point of pain. Bo Nix isn't going to be a guy that stresses you quite as much as you've seen before. Hold on 1 second. I need to mute the line. Sorry, there was a dog making noise, so I didn't want to put you through that. But yeah, so let's go through a couple questions. So I want to see Max Johnson. I think it'll be interesting if the game's a little closer. If Edo, if TJ Finley kind of has some struggling moments, if Max gets in there, Max, the son of Brad Johnson. If you remember Brad Johnson, Super Bowl winner with John Gruden down in Tampa Bay quite a while back. I want to say it was in the 2000 season. They showed a picture on the broadcast of Max, as a baby in Brad Johnson's arms, which, he has better baby photos than you do. That's a fact. But yeah, Max is interesting. He got in at the end of last game, and he's more of a scrambler. As strange as it sounds, the son of Brad Johnson is more of a scrambler than you would expect. He's got really good athleticism. But the other thing to keep in mind is he's a lefty. And that's difficult to transition from a right-handed quarterback to a left-handed quarterback, especially because the offensive line before last week had struggled to hold up in pass protection. And when you throw a left-handed quarterback in the mix, you end up having to flip all of your, primary protection schemes. You flip the routes that you're targeting because it's coming from the other side of the field. Your left tackle, which is so important when in terms of protecting a right-handed quarterback, is now the opposite, where the right tackle becomes what you would want the left tackle to be. And you would typically have your best offensive lineman playing left tackle. But when you have a left-handed quarterback, you would want your best offensive lineman playing right tackle because that's now his blind side. So it's not as simple to switch back and forth with them as you might think, which is why when Max Johnson gets in a game, I would expect a much more run-heavy type scheme because they would be testing fate to throw a left-handed quarterback in all of a sudden and then try to have him drop back and throw because who knows? It's tough, especially with a freshman quarterback that you don't quite know all that well. I think if you see Max Johnson in the game, I think he's running it. Or it's going to be a run play type of read option type thing where he's more of a Taysom Hill, as much as that comparison is painful to make. He's more of a Taysom Hill than a the guy who's in there to throw the ball down the field. Let's see. This is the last one we'll go to. I'll always pull for the Tigers. I just don't think that the defense has solidified enough yet. Yeah, that's fair. Jacoby Stevens has really struggled. I think they're relying on him a lot. LSU, every year it seems like they have that just money, free safety. They had Jamal Adams. They had Grant Delpit. They had Patrick Peterson at corner. They always have these great coverage guys, especially at the safety position, and they just don't have that this year. I think Jacoby Stevens is more of a linebacker than a safety, and I think at the NFL level, he's going to be a guy that plays that kind of money backer, hybrid linebacker safety role. Like if you watch, another Saints comparison would be CD Deuce, who, they run all of these sub packages and they have a safety who they know is big and strong enough to hold up in the run game. And that's what Jacoby Stevens is. And when you see him in coverage, it really kind of drives home that point that he's just not a cover safety. But because they have all of these moving parts and they have all these young players, he's being asked to cover a lot more than I think that he should be in the scheme. So I think you really want to see the other guys kind of step up in coverage, and then you can let Jacoby Stevens do what he does best and get up there and make tackles. He's a big, strong safety. He kind of reminds me of a Mark Barron, where I think the second he got to the NFL, they converted him to linebacker from safety because it just makes more sense. But the Tigers just don't have the depth in the secondary to be able to do that right now. But okay, no one draws in any score predictions. I'm disappointed. But I will give you mine. I think that this is a surprisingly low-scoring game. I think that the LSU Tigers, these are my least favorite games of the season are Missouri, or LSU, Missouri, LSU Auburn, LSU Clemson, because I can't just say Tigers and move on. I have to say LSU Clemson. Otherwise, no one has any idea what I'm talking about. But I think the LSU Tigers run the ball a lot. I think they possess the ball. They try to stack first downs. Again, I'll make another Saints comparison, which is the same way they played the Panthers. The Saints only had 6 drives in that game because they stacked first down after first down after first down. They had long drives, and it's okay if those long drives end in field goals. They just can't end in turnovers. And then you just have to trust that your rested defense is able to play good football. And so I would guess, it's going to be a tight game because they always are. The last 4 games between LSU and Auburn were 5 points or less. I think it's going to be that way again. I think it's going to be a field goal to 4 points. I'm going to go LSU 28, Auburn 24. Auburn gets the ball with a chance to go ahead, and LSU's defense holds down. That's my guess, 28-24. But that's it. We are about 45 minutes from kickoff at Jordan-Hare Stadium. The game will be on Fox, I believe, locally. You might have to. You're going to want to double check that 2:30 p.m. kickoff. But that's it. I'll wrap this up. Thanks again to our sponsor, Creed and Creed, for helping us bring this to y'all. And let's see how it goes. Peace, y'all. Thanks.